Today we're going to be talking about the best boxer in every single UFC weight class. So starting off in the heavyweight division, we have the undisputed heavyweight champion in Tom Aspinall. This was a pretty obvious choice if we're going to be honest. You do have some other options like a Pavlovich is there. Wilder Cortez Acosta's boxing isn't bad if we're being honest. And Alexander Volkov. But I just think Tom Aspinall's boxing is I wouldn't say a lot better, but I just think he is the better boxer out of all of them, in my opinion. Very fast feet, good shot selection, fast combinations. Obviously, he hits like a truck as well. And Tom Aspinall does have professional boxing experience. He is currently 1-0 in his boxing career and has sparred the likes of Tyson Fury, Tommy Fury. He's been around the Furies a lot, and at one point in time Tom Aspinall was going to take up a career in professional boxing. Now the heavyweight division isn't full with great boxers, to be honest, and if Tom Aspinall was to be compared to some of the other guys that I think are great boxers in the UFC, I personally wouldn't have him top 5 in my opinion. But in terms of the heavyweights, he is the best. Now Tom Aspinall in my opinion does make some mistakes on the feet. Defensively, he wouldn't be the most perfect fighter. I think Tom Aspinall is there to be hit, and we've seen that in a lot of his fights. Whenever he's got his hands down, chin in the air, Tom Aspinall is there to be caught. But in terms of best boxer in the heavyweight division, it would be Tom Aspinall. Moving on to the light heavyweight division. Look, a lot of people are going to say Alex Pereira for this one, but in my opinion, it is Magomed Ankalaev. Look, a lot of people are kind of confused with Magomed Ankalaev and confused when they talk about how Magomed Ankalaev fights because of his name, his beard, and where he comes from. A lot of people just assume this guy's like the light heavyweight version of Khabib Nurmagomedov, and that just isn't really how Magomed Ankalaev fights. Yes, he is a grappler, but what got Magomed Ankalaev to the dance, got him to a title fight, and ultimately won him the belt of Alex Pereira is his boxing. He's got very fast hands. He's a tricky southpaw to work out. He's got a really good straight left hand. He is a problem on the feet, and it's not like he's a good kickboxer. It's predominantly his boxing. We've seen him outbox Alex Pereira in their matchup. He was too quick. He's actually got pretty underrated footwork in my opinion as well. But yeah, the way he's able to manage distance really well, his straight left as well. He's a tricky southpaw to work out. I think Magomed Ankalaev's boxing is really underrated. I really do. That's what got him to the dance. That's what helps him beat a lot of these guys. It's not his grappling. It is his striking. And it's not as if he's throwing a lot of kicks in there. It is predominantly down to his boxing. He's a tricky southpaw with a good backhand. Magomed Ankalaev is the best boxer in the UFC's light heavyweight division. Now, maybe Pereira might prove us wrong in the rematch. That might be a possibility. It is either between Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira. But basing it off their first fight, Magomed Ankalaev outstruck, and it was predominantly he outboxed Alex Pereira in that matchup. Moving on to the middleweight division, it is Sean Strickland. Look, Sean Strickland has a really good jab. That's kind of what he's got as a part of his game. Obviously, he has decided to don the Floyd Mayweather Philly shell in there whenever he is fighting in MMA, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Obviously, we've seen him outbox Israel Adesanya comfortably for all 5 rounds. Sean Strickland obviously doesn't have a lot of power in there. He's got a really good jab, but it's his volume. But Sean Strickland's jab is one of the best in the UFC. Some people might not agree with me on that take, but when you go back and watch it, Sean Strickland does really, really good work with his lead hand. And I think in a just straight up boxing fight, Sean Strickland would be very hard to beat. In terms of who you have in the middleweight division, like I don't think anybody in the middleweight division in a pure boxing fight would outbox Sean Strickland. I think this guy has got really good boxing, a really good jab. In terms of what other shot selection he has, there isn't really much there, but he does have a very dominant jab, and that has won him a lot of fights in the UFC. That has got him to the position where he is right now in the middleweight division, is his pure boxing ability, mainly the work that he's able to do off that jab. Moving on to the welterweight division, look, this is obvious. It is JDM. JDM is one of the best boxers in the UFC, in my opinion. He's got really good footwork, great straight shots, great shot selection, can fight really well at the mid-range, can fight really well close quarters as well. JDM is a really good boxer in my opinion. He's also very fast as well. And it's not as if like there's a lot of overwhelming volume that comes from JDM. he does pick his shots really well, and when he lets them shots go, he's able to place them perfect, and the amount of damage that he is able to inflict on his opponents with his hands. I think JDM is one of the best mid-range boxers in the UFC, in my opinion. Some really slick movement in there, some really slick combinations. He is the best boxer in the welterweight division, hands down. Moving on to the lightweight division, look, this is another obvious one. It is Ilia Topuria. He is the best boxer right now in the UFC, in my opinion. Whether that be the way he utilises his jab, the way he utilises his distance, his footwork is really underrated. I always go back to the fight against Volkanovski when you see him closing the distance against Volkanovski, who again is a really good boxer and does really well managing distance, because Volkanovski's got one of the best jabs in the UFC. But the way Ilia Topuria would do it would be small lateral movements cutting off the cage. It would be small lateral movements and then one big step forward. Small lateral movements, one big step forward. And as he would come forward, that's when Volkanovski would move back, and it was just inch by inch, he was just closing the gap between him and Volkanovski, and that's where he was able to let off that combination. Ilia Topuria is the best body head puncher in the UFC, in my opinion. What I mean by that is he mixes it up from the body to the head better than anybody. Obviously it helps that he is extremely powerful, but the way he's able to utilize his jab and some of the other things that you would notice, especially in the Oliveira matchup, when the knockout sequence came, obviously Ilia Topuria is the smaller opponent, but they were in close quarters anyway. But once Ilia Topuria was able to find his jab, he was jabbing the head, jabbing to the body, what he done was he's very heavy on his lead leg, so he's got a lot of his weight on his lead leg, which obviously means that he can lean into shots and throw them with some serious power, as we've seen him be able to knock out a lot of his opponents. But what Oliveira done was Oliveira stepped in, and that was a mistake that Oliveira made. He stepped in while Ilia Topuria was lean. Ilia Topuria was very heavy on his lead leg, weight distributed very, very forward, and as Oliveira stepped in, Ilia Topuria doesn't need to step in. He leans, and that's where he lands that right hand and knocks out Oliveira. It was a very perfectly timed shot that it wasn't just like I just threw the right hand and knocked out Oliveira. It was very calculated with how he was able to utilise his jab. Even in the Max Holloway matchup, look at how he's utilising his jab in there. And like I said, the footwork shown in the Volkanovski matchup and what led that combination that he let go. Ilia Topuria is easily the best boxer right now in the UFC. Moving on to the featherweight division, we have got Alexander Volkanovski. Look, Volkanovski, again, a really good boxer. What's surprising about Volkanovski is he's got a really, really good jab and manages distance really, really well. Again, can fight out of either stance as well. That's one thing that Volkanovski utilises really well. And he's got some really good lateral movement. Now, Volkanovski has a really, really good jab that even opponents that are much taller than Volkanovski really do struggle with. Now, what helps Volkanovski with his jab is the fact that Volk does have the Mike Wazowski build, which is where he's small but has really long arms. But go back and look at his matchup against Max Holloway in there. Go back and look at his fight. Even look at his fight against Ilia Topuria in round 1. He was landing that jab repeatedly on Ilia Topuria in there. Volkanovski is the best boxer in the featherweight division. Someone that I think is an underrated boxer in the division is Movsar Evloev though, but Volkanovski, best boxer. Moving on to the bantamweight division. Look, this is another obvious one. Petr Yan might be second best boxer in the UFC behind Ilia Topuria. Look, the way this guy is able to pick his shots, again, can fight out of either stance, is very defensively sound as well. He's not just, he's good at the attack. He's also good at the defense side of it as well. Petr Yan's shot selections really well. The way he's able to mix up body and head shots as well. Petr Yan is the second best boxer in the UFC. And finally, in the flyweight division, it's another obvious one. It is Joshua Van. He is easily the best boxer in that division. You do have Moreno in there. Royval was in there for a shout, but obviously we just seen Joshua Van outstrike him in their matchup. I would love to see Joshua Van versus Moreno, but I just think Joshua Van's shot selection and how patient he is, Joshua Van, you might, even though he did throw a lot of volume against Royval, but in the first round, Royval was just throwing shit, hoping it stuck, where Joshua Van was being very patient, being very defensively sound, and making reads, and the reads that he was able to make was like, whenever Royval would just throw like pity patter shots out, Joshua Van would then be able to make the read to know whenever he throws maybe the left hand out, he'll just come up over the top and he would land on him. He showed some really good fight IQ in there, especially with his boxing, and he's also got some really good footwork in my opinion. Joshua Van is easily the best boxer in the flyweight division. But yeah, those are the best boxers in every division in the UFC. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. Who do you think is the best boxer? And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I really appreciate the support, and I'll see you again in the next one.